We walked through the snow. Tall trees stood around us, their leaves narrow and sharp at the tips. Kino moved ahead, checking an analog gauge against a paper map mounted on the mobility vehicle. The system seemed simple. It showed only distance traveled and direction. At first we talked about the system failure and the land around us. After a while the conversation faded. We walked in silence. There was only the sound of snow under our boots and our own breathing. The boots were heated, so my feet stayed warm, but the snow came nearly to my knees. Every step took effort. Kino's boots could melt the snow around them. He took the lead. I followed his tracks and hoped his sense of direction was right. After some time he turned and said he could see the shelter. A small green point glowed ahead. Relief came at once. When I checked the time, only 20 minutes had passed since we left. It felt like much longer. The shelter looked like a storage shed. The entrance was a sliding door. It was unlocked. Inside, near the entrance, there was a drying room for wet clothes and boots. We left ours there. Across from it was a door that seemed to lead to a bathroom. When Kino removed his hat and heavy coat, he looked much younger than he had at first. A door at the end of the hall opened into a large room with a wooden floor. Kino switched on the heat. The room warmed quickly. An old sofa and table stood at one end. Half the room was filled with boxes of food, blankets, and supplies. At the back there was a small kitchen and a bathroom. A staircase beside the kitchen led underground. We went down to look for the equipment room. Below, there was a storeroom stacked with sacks and boxes, and another room with a terminal. We powered it on, but it still could not connect to the network. Kino reached for a machine mounted on the wall. It had numbered keys. "What is that?" I asked. "It can make voice calls," he said. "It's analog. It uses a wired line, separate from the network." He said he would try contacting the observatory. The call tone continued for a while. Then someone answered. "Yes? This is Kino. I'm at the shelter with Ms. Mihara from Al." "Kino?" We were worried. "Are you both all right?" "We're fine. But the vehicle stopped working, and the system is down." According to the staff member, the observatory had lost network access as well. Their vehicles were unusable. They were checking other options, helicopters, snowmobiles, but visibility was poor because of the snow. We agreed to remain at the shelter until the system recovered. The line went dead. Kino said he would contact other locations and gather information. I went upstairs and sat on the sofa. I opened a bottle of stored water and drank. Outside the window, evening was settling over the snow. A sound woke me. At some point I had fallen asleep. Kino was nowhere in sight. Perhaps he was still downstairs. The sound seemed to come from outside. Maybe the weight of the snow had broken a branch. The window was dark. Snow drifted through the night like pale shadows. Then I heard the entrance door open. I stood. Had someone else arrived? Or had Kino gone outside and returned? Slowly, the door to the room opened. A large animal stepped inside. Its body was covered in white fur. There were two of them. I could not speak. They were Namu. The Namu came a little farther into the room and stopped. They looked at me. Round brown eyes. Round ears. Perhaps 2 meters long. They were far more imposing than they had appeared in the videos. Everything I had heard suggested they were not aggressive toward humans. Even so, I could not shake the fear. My whole body felt rigid. The Namu closest to me opened its mouth. The sound was strange. It was not the flat cry of any animal I knew. It rose and fell, long and musical. Another voice answered. Higher. Then I noticed a third Namu between them. A child. The young Namu spoke as it walked toward me. It was remarkably charming. Then I saw that it dragged one hind leg. There seemed to be blood. I started to move closer. A loud cry came from one of the adults. I stepped back instinctively, but hit the sofa behind me. The adult Namu stared at me. Then another voice came from behind. The words meant nothing to me. They were short and carried the same strange rhythm. I turned. Kino stood there. He repeated the phrase. One of the Namu answered. I could not understand what was said, but the tension in the room seemed to ease. You can speak their language? I asked. No, only a few words. That means hello. But that's incredible. Hardly anyone can speak Namu. My grandmother could. She taught me a little when I was young. That one looks injured. I pointed at the child. It does. Let's give them some food first. That's probably why they came in. Kino took out a bottle of water, some bread, and dried meat from the emergency supplies. He spoke to them as he offered the food. When the Namu accepted it, they dipped their heads and said something. Watching them, I felt calmer. They were beings we could communicate with. The three Namu sat on the floor. They opened the bottle with surprising ease, drank, and began to eat. Maybe we should eat too, Kino said. Only then did I realize we had eaten nothing since before noon. We boiled water and cooked dried noodles with vegetables. The situation was unfamiliar, but food settled the mind. Kino brought over a box of medical supplies and approached the young Namu. This time it did not resist. I don't think the bone is broken, he said. I'm not a doctor, so I can't be sure. But we should clean the wound. When he began treating it, the child tried to pull away. He asked me to hold it still. Carefully, I wrapped my arms around it from behind. Its white fur was soft. I had not touched another living creature like this in a long time. Its body was warm. I stroked the fur gently. The child made a small sound. The adults watched in silence. Kino sprayed the wound clean and covered it with regenerative medical tape. When he finished, the child pressed itself against one of the adults. Before long, it closed its eyes. I wondered if the two adults were its parents. They were nearly the same size. I could not tell male from female. Kino and I discussed what to do next. He had contacted government offices as well. The system failure appeared to be widespread. The faulty hardware had already been identified, and repairs were underway. But transportation problems were slowing everything down. The root cause remained unknown. The police were investigating, including the possibility of deliberate interference. Kino had spoken with the observatory again. If the vehicle remained unusable, a helicopter would come for us. There was an open area nearby where it could land, though we would need to walk there. It would be safer to wait until daylight. I asked about the equipment left in the mobility vehicle. Once the network recovered, he said, the vehicle could return to the observatory under automatic control. That would leave me without my equipment and unable to work. We discussed other options. We could walk back and retrieve it ourselves, or ask the helicopter to land near the vehicle. Either way, it seemed we would spend the night here. The Namu were asleep now. They had curled together in a corner of the room. We took sleeping bags and blankets from the supply boxes. Kino boiled water once more and made a hot drink. It was tea with a sweet scent. I wrapped both hands around the steaming cup and pulled the blanket closer. Outside, darkness pressed against the windows. I could no longer tell whether it was still snowing. Kino dimmed the lights. Now and then the young Namu's white ear twitched. Their breathing sounded like wind moving through trees. The room was quiet. It was a strange night.